Rachel's phone rang just as she was reviewing invoices in her upstairs office. She almost ignored it. Instead, she answered. "Mrs. Whitmore," a man's voice whispered. It was the window cleaner she had hired that morning. He sounded nothing like the cheerful contractor who had greeted her an hour earlier. His breathing was uneven. "Ma'am, is anyone else on your property right now?" Rachel frowned and looked out the office window toward the long driveway. "No," she answered. "Why?" There was a long silence. Then he lowered his voice even further. "I hear someone crying inside your pool house." Rachel sat upright so quickly her chair rolled backward. "What?" "I've been cleaning the back windows. Every time I pass that building," he hesitated, "I hear a woman crying." Rachel stared toward the detached pool house beyond the garden. Impossible. Her husband, Daniel, had locked it before leaving for a 2-week overseas business assignment. No one had been inside since. Then the cleaner added something that made her blood run cold. "And ma'am, I heard a man tell her to stay quiet." Rachel immediately shook her head. "That can't be right. My husband's overseas." "I'm only telling you what I heard." Her hands were already searching for Daniel's contact. He answered the video call after only 2 rings. Behind him was an elegant hotel room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a city skyline. He smiled for barely a second before noticing her expression. "Rachel, what's wrong?" She swallowed. "The window cleaner says he hears someone crying in the pool house." Daniel's face hardened almost instantly. "For heaven's sake," he sighed. "People imagine things. Don't embarrass yourself by calling the police because some contractor heard a strange noise." He also said he heard a man. Daniel laughed once. "You're letting a stranger fill your head with nonsense." Before Rachel could respond, he glanced away from the camera. "I have executives waiting. I'll call later." The screen went black. Rachel stared at her own reflection. Daniel hadn't reassured her. He'd shut the conversation down. Outside, the window cleaner hadn't packed up. Instead, he remained standing near the driveway, repeatedly glancing toward the pool house as if he expected someone to come out. A message appeared on Rachel's phone. Voice recording. Hands trembling, she pressed play. For several seconds, she heard nothing except wind. Then came muffled sobbing. A terrified woman whispered through tears. "Please." A pause. "Don't let him come back." Rachel's heart slammed against her ribs. There really was someone. Without taking time to think, she ran downstairs, grabbed her keys, and hurried toward the backyard. The pool house stood exactly as Daniel had left it. Quiet. Locked. Still. She was only a few yards away when the crying abruptly stopped. Everything became unnaturally silent. Rachel froze. If Daniel was supposed to be thousands of miles away, who had just silenced the woman? Rachel stood perfectly still, listening. The backyard was silent, except for the breeze moving through the hedges. The pool house sat 30 feet away, its white shutters closed and every curtain drawn. Daniel had always insisted it remain locked whenever he traveled. He claimed expensive equipment was stored inside, though Rachel had never once seen him use any of it. She took another cautious step. Then another. The window cleaner hurried after her. "Ma'am," he whispered, "maybe we should wait for the police." Rachel kept her eyes on the building. "If someone is trapped in there, I can't just walk away." As they reached the front door, she noticed something that made her stomach tighten. A heavy black padlock hung from the latch. She stopped. "I've never seen this lock before." The cleaner examined it. "It looks brand new." Rachel immediately pulled out her phone and called Daniel again. He answered after several rings. "What now?" he asked, irritation replacing the calm voice he had used minutes earlier. "Why is there a different lock on the pool house?" A brief silence. Then he answered too quickly. I had contractors working there before I left. Rachel frowned. Contractors? You never mentioned that. They stored chemicals inside. Don't go near it. She looked at the freshly painted walls. There haven't been contractors here in months. Daniel's voice sharpened. Rachel. She had rarely heard him use that tone. Leave it alone. I just heard someone crying. I don't care what you think you heard. It's not what I heard. Someone else heard it too. I said stay away from that building. The line went silent for a second. Then Daniel lowered his voice. If you trust me, you'll walk back into the house. He ended the call. Rachel stared at the disconnected screen. The cleaner quietly asked, does he always react like that? She didn't answer. Because he didn't. Daniel usually explained everything patiently. Today he had sounded frightened. Not concerned. Frightened. Rachel slowly walked around the side of the pool house. Fresh tire tracks cut through the gravel behind it. She crouched beside them. They're recent. The cleaner nodded. I didn't notice them when I arrived. Just then, her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Langford, leaned over the shared fence. Rachel. Rachel forced a smile. Morning. Mrs. Langford pointed toward the back gate. I almost came over last night. Rachel looked up. Why? I saw a black SUV drive onto your property around 10 o'clock. Rachel's pulse skipped. A black SUV. Yes. Mrs. Langford shrugged. I assumed Daniel came home early. Rachel forced herself to remain calm. No, he's overseas. Mrs. Langford frowned. Oh. Rachel thanked her and watched the neighbor return inside. Her thoughts raced. Someone had entered the property. Someone Daniel had never mentioned. She opened the last week of Daniel's text messages. Every morning, he had sent photographs from the same luxury hotel. Coffee. Conference room. City skyline. Perfect husband. Perfect business trip. Rachel enlarged one of the skyline photos. The weather application on her phone still showed heavy rain in the city Daniel claimed to be visiting. But the hotel photo showed bright sunshine reflecting off glass buildings. She zoomed in further. A digital clock inside the hotel lobby displayed a completely different local time than it should have. Her chest tightened. The photographs hadn't been taken when he said they were. Maybe they hadn't even been taken there. She looked back toward the pool house. The cleaner quietly spoke. I'll stay until you figure this out. Rachel nodded. Thank you. She searched the ring of spare keys she had brought from the house. None matched the unfamiliar padlock. She was about to suggest calling a locksmith when... Bang! Something struck the inside wall. Both of them jumped. Rachel rushed toward the nearest window. Hello? No answer. She pressed closer. I'm here. A trembling female voice came through the wall. So, someone finally came. Rachel's eyes filled with disbelief. Who are you? The woman answered so quietly Rachel almost missed it. He said. Her breathing caught. He said you'd never believe me. Rachel reached for her phone to dial emergency services. Before she could press the first number, headlights swept across the backyard. An engine rumbled behind them. Rachel slowly turned. A black SUV rolled through the side gate and stopped directly beside the pool house. The black SUV rolled to a stop so abruptly that gravel sprayed across the driveway. Rachel instinctively stepped backward. The window cleaner grabbed her arm. Ma'am, that's the vehicle. The driver's door cracked open. For a split second, Rachel caught the silhouette of a man inside. Then the engine roared. The SUV shot backward, spun around, and sped through the open side gate before either of them could reach it. Get the plate, Rachel shouted. The cleaner lifted his phone. but the vehicle disappeared around the corner before he could focus the camera. Rachel immediately dialed emergency services. "My name is Rachel Whitmore. I think someone is being held inside my pool house." The dispatcher kept her calm. "Officers are on the way. Do not enter the building." Rachel remained near the entrance, while the window cleaner stayed beside her. Within minutes, flashing lights filled the driveway. 2 patrol cars arrived first. A supervising officer approached. "You own the property?" "Yes." "And who has access to the pool house?" "My husband." "Where is he?" "Supposedly overseas." The officer exchanged a quick glance with his partner before walking toward the building. They inspected every window, every lock, every entrance. One officer knocked firmly. No answer. Another circled the structure. There aren't any signs of forced entry. Rachel pointed at the unfamiliar padlock. That wasn't here before. The officer examined it. Could have been replaced by the homeowner. Rachel tried to explain everything: the phone call, the crying, the recording, Daniel's strange reaction. The officers listened carefully. But without visible evidence, they hesitated. "If someone was inside," one officer said carefully, "it's possible they've already left." Rachel couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You're just going to leave?" "We're saying we have to follow the law." Before anyone could respond, another vehicle pulled into the driveway. Rachel recognized it instantly. Her mother-in-law, Eleanor. She hurried toward the officers before Rachel could even speak. "Oh, thank goodness," Eleanor sighed dramatically. "I'm Daniel's mother." One officer nodded politely. She turned toward Rachel with obvious frustration. "What are you doing?" Rachel stared. "I didn't call you. Daniel called me." Rachel froze. "He said you were overreacting again." The words hit harder than she expected. Eleanor faced the officers. "My son is working overseas. Rachel worries whenever he's gone." "I'm not imagining this." Eleanor folded her arms. "Then explain why nobody has found anyone." "The officers haven't gone inside." "They don't need to if there's no evidence." Neighbors had begun gathering along the sidewalk, quietly watching. Rachel could feel their eyes on her. Whispers spread from one person to another. "Poor Daniel. She must be under stress. This is embarrassing." Rachel looked toward the window cleaner. He stepped forward without hesitation. "I heard her." The crowd fell silent. "I recorded it." He connected his phone to a portable speaker he used while working. The recording echoed across the backyard. Wind. Silence. Then unmistakable sobbing. A frightened woman's voice. "Please." Another pause. "Don't let him come back." Nobody spoke. Even Eleanor's expression changed. One officer immediately raised a hand. "Everyone stay back." At that exact moment, knock. A faint sound came from inside the pool house. Another knock. Then another. The officers didn't hesitate again. "Break the lock." One officer struck the padlock with a heavy breaching tool. The third hit shattered it. The door swung open. Rachel rushed forward, but was stopped behind the police line. Inside, no one. The room was eerily organized. A narrow bed. Stacks of bottled water. Blankets folded neatly. Medical supplies arranged on a table. Every window covered from the inside. The air smelled stale. One detective slowly picked up a notebook lying on the bed. Every page contained the same desperate message. "Please help me. He's lying. I'm still here." Rachel covered her mouth. "So where is she?" Another officer examined the concrete floor. "Wait." He knelt beside a large storage cabinet. After pushing it aside, everyone stared. Hidden beneath it was a narrow steel hatch. The detective lifted it. A dark utility tunnel stretched beneath the pool house. Fresh footprints covered the dusty floor. She was moved recently, he said. Very recently. Before anyone could climb inside, Rachel's phone vibrated. An airline notification flashed across the screen. Daniel Whitmore's international flight has landed. Rachel frowned. The arrival airport wasn't across the ocean. It was less than 45 minutes from her home. She handed the phone to the detective. He studied it, then looked directly at her. His voice was calm, but every word changed the investigation. Mrs. Whitmore. He paused. Your husband was never overseas. Rachel felt as though the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. She looked from the detective to the airline notification, still glowing on her phone. That can't be right. The detective handed the phone back. When did your husband tell you he left the country? 12 days ago. And you saw him leave? Rachel hesitated. No, he hired a car to take him to the airport. We said goodbye at home. The detective nodded. We'll verify everything. Within the hour, investigators began collecting surveillance footage from neighboring homes and businesses. Rachel remained on the property, answering questions while crime scene technicians photographed the pool house and the hidden utility tunnel. Late that afternoon, the lead detective returned carrying a tablet. We've reviewed security cameras from the neighborhood. He turned the screen toward Rachel. There was Daniel, walking through the side gate. Not once. Not twice. Almost every night since the supposed overseas trip had begun. Each visit happened well after midnight. Each time, he drove the same black SUV. Rachel covered her mouth. I don't understand. He never left. The detective said quietly. Another investigator approached holding a folder. We also checked border records. He opened the file. Your husband's passport hasn't been scanned leaving the country. Rachel stared blankly. So, every video call may have been pre-recorded. Investigators obtained warrants for Daniel's electronic devices. Within hours, digital forensic specialists uncovered software that automatically sent scheduled messages, delayed photographs, and pre-recorded video clips designed to appear live. The hotel room, the conference meetings, the city skyline. Every piece had been carefully staged. Nothing had been happening in real time. Rachel sank into a chair. For nearly 2 weeks. She shook her head. He was here. The detective's phone rang. After a brief conversation, he looked toward Rachel. We located another property connected to your husband. Where? A furnished apartment about 15 minutes away. Search teams entered the apartment before sunset. Rachel was not allowed inside, but investigators later described exactly what they found. Expensive camera equipment, portable lighting, printed hotel backdrops, several mobile phones, laptops, financial ledgers, boxes filled with company documents. It looked less like an apartment and more like a command center built to maintain Daniel's deception. Then another breakthrough came. A detective returned carrying a personnel file from Daniel's company. He placed one photograph on the table. Do you recognize her? Rachel studied the woman. Dark hair. Professional smile. No. Her name is Melissa Grant. The detective continued. She served as Daniel's financial controller for almost 6 years. What happened to her? She disappeared 3 weeks ago. Rachel's pulse quickened. The detective took a slow breath. We believe she's the woman who was inside your pool house. He explained that Melissa had abruptly stopped reporting to work after refusing to authorize several unusually large financial transfers involving shell companies. Daniel had told everyone she had resigned unexpectedly. No resignation had ever been submitted. Rachel suddenly remembered the terrified whisper from the recording. "Please, don't let him come back." The words now carried an entirely different meaning. The investigation expanded immediately. State investigators joined local detectives. Melissa's disappearance became an active missing person case. Meanwhile, Rachel voluntarily surrendered every password, financial record, property document, and account under her control. "I want you to have everything," she told investigators. "If there's something hidden, I want you to find it." News of her cooperation spread quickly. Neighbors who had questioned her only hours earlier began quietly apologizing. Even the officers who had initially doubted her acknowledged that her actions had likely saved Melissa's life. Late that evening, Rachel's phone rang. "Daniel." She stared at the screen before answering. His voice was calm. Too calm. "I heard you've been talking to the police." Rachel didn't answer. "I need you to listen carefully," he continued. "In my office, there's a locked cabinet." She remained silent. "I want you to remove everything inside and burn it." Rachel looked at the detective, standing across the room. He immediately activated a recording device and nodded. Daniel continued speaking. "No one can ever see those files." Rachel asked quietly, "What are you hiding, Daniel?" Several seconds passed. Then his voice hardened. "Just do what I told you." He disconnected. The detective was already tracing the call. Minutes later, another officer rushed into the command room. "We've got a location." Multiple patrol units deployed immediately. Rachel waited beside the detective, listening to the police radio crackle with updates. Officers surrounded an isolated property outside the city. No one spoke. Every second felt endless. Then the radio came alive. "We've entered." A pause. Another voice shouted something indistinct. Rachel gripped the edge of the table. The detective reached for the radio. Suddenly, a clear voice broke through the static. "We found her alive." The detective didn't wait for another update. "Let's go." Rachel followed him to an unmarked police vehicle, her heart pounding the entire drive. No one spoke. Every mile felt longer than the last. By the time they reached the remote lakeside property, flashing emergency lights illuminated the surrounding trees. Officers were already leading a woman, wrapped in a blanket, toward an ambulance. Rachel recognized her immediately. The same face from the personnel file. Melissa. She looked exhausted. Her wrists were bruised. Her eyes darted nervously at every unfamiliar sound until a paramedic gently reassured her. "You're safe now." Melissa looked toward Rachel. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Melissa whispered, "You believed me." Rachel felt tears fill her eyes. "I almost didn't." Melissa lowered her head. "He told me you never would." Later that evening, investigators interviewed Melissa at the hospital. She explained everything from the beginning. For 6 years, she had managed financial records for Daniel's construction company. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then she discovered invoices that didn't match completed projects. Payments had been routed through shell companies. Large sums disappeared into accounts controlled by fake businesses. She confronted Daniel privately. "I told him I wouldn't approve another transfer." Melissa's hands trembled around the cup of tea the nurse had given her. He smiled. Rachel listened silently. "He said I'd already signed enough paperwork to make myself look guilty." Melissa refused to cooperate. The following evening, Daniel invited her to discuss the matter one last time. Instead, he drugged her coffee. When she woke up, she was locked inside the Whitmore's pool house. Every attempt to escape failed. Daniel repeatedly told her the police would never believe her. He claimed Rachel trusted him completely. Whenever he left food or medicine, he warned Melissa to remain quiet. But when the window cleaner arrived, she took the first chance she had. She cried loudly enough for someone outside to hear. It was the only risk she had left. Investigators soon confirmed every part of Melissa's statement. The shell companies existed. The forged invoices existed. The missing money existed. Search warrants executed at Daniel's apartment uncovered encrypted financial records, matching Melissa's testimony exactly. The documents Daniel had desperately wanted Rachel to destroy became the strongest evidence against him. Within days, prosecutors announced multiple criminal charges: kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, witness intimidation, fraud, forgery, financial crimes spanning several years. News coverage spread quickly. The successful executive everyone admired was exposed as a man who had built his career on deception. His company immediately suspended operations. Major clients canceled contracts. Business partners publicly distanced themselves. Several executives agreed to cooperate with investigators after reviewing the evidence. Daniel's carefully constructed reputation collapsed almost overnight. Rachel spent days answering investigators' questions. Every bank account, every property record, every document she possessed. She voluntarily turned everything over. Forensic accountants confirmed she had never benefited from Daniel's criminal activity and had no knowledge of his scheme. Authorities publicly announced she was not under investigation. The statement changed everything. Neighbors who had quietly questioned her judgment arrived with flowers and handwritten apologies. Even the officers who had initially hesitated admitted that without Rachel's persistence and the window cleaner's courage, Melissa might never have been found alive. Rachel thanked the cleaner personally. "I don't know how to repay you." He smiled modestly. "You already did." "How?" "You listened." Several months later, Rachel finalized her divorce. The court awarded her full control over the marital assets that had been legally acquired, while Daniel's fraudulently obtained property was seized through criminal proceedings. She never accepted another call from him. Not from jail. Not through attorneys. Not through family members. The chapter was over. The pool house remained untouched for weeks after investigators finished processing it. Rachel couldn't bear to look at it. One morning, she hired a demolition crew. She stood quietly as the walls came down. The building that had hidden so much pain disappeared piece by piece. In its place, she planted a garden filled with flowering trees, lavender and white roses. Melissa visited months later. She had begun rebuilding her life and preparing to testify in court. The two women walked slowly through the garden together. Neither said much. They didn't need to. The silence no longer felt frightening. It felt peaceful. As they reached the center of the garden, Rachel looked toward the empty space where the pool house had once stood. She thought about how close she had come to dismissing a stranger's phone call. How easily one frightened voice could have gone unheard. From that day forward, whenever someone asked how everything had finally unraveled, Rachel gave the same answer. "The loudest warning I ever received wasn't a scream I heard myself." She smiled softly. It was the one someone else refused to ignore.